Thanks, Christine, and thank you to the organisers. It's always great to tell a story, even if it is in the shadow of lunchtime. As an engineer giving an exploration story, I always like to dip my lid to my technical brothers, and so I'm opening my presentation today with a little bit of rock porn. That's a massive nickel copper sulphide slug from hole 17 at Mawson. It's in a 19.7 metre long intercept, and the story you're going to hear today is that legend is the leverage play if you want to invest in nickel in the Fraser zone of WA. There are basically 4 boxes that need to be ticked. First is proof of concept, that there's actually been the precipitation of these massive nickel copper sulphides, tick. Second is that we've got the grade. We've got the grade, it's here on the screen in front of you, tick. Third is that it's got to occur in material intercepts, 19.8 metres, a 7-storey building. The fourth one, which is what we're all about at the moment, is looking for the tonnes to turn it into a commercial operation. And Mawson clearly is our leading prospect. Usual disclaimer. The contents of my presentation, I'd like to talk a little bit about the nickel market, then about legend, and wrap it up for you. The nickel market I've found fascinating and has totally absorbed me since I've come back to this project in 2015. That's a 5-year graph of the blue line is the nickel price and the red line is the LME nickel stockpile. I know there are a lot of peaks and troughs in it because things don't behave in straight lines. But basically, if you look at the nickel price, you can see there's been a steady rise through that period as the stockpiles have been dropping. But I guess the thematic at the moment is that the stockpiles are relatively stable, and we've seen quite a strong nickel price rise from the $5 to $7 US a pound. That really is defying the fundamentals, because the fundamentals are, 12 months ago, all of the market analysts would have been telling you that the nickel market should be in deficit. Today it's in surplus, and one of the main reasons for that is the decline of usage in stainless steel and the slow uptake of EV batteries. And that's largely by commentators put down to the COVID-19 effect. Nickel is basically used in stainless steel. 70% of everything that's produced is stainless steel. And the role of Indonesia is really crucial to this medium-term outlook. The Chinese principally have come into Indonesia with their RKEF technology, and they are producing nickel, or a nickel pig iron product, at about $7,000 to $8,000 a tonne, if we can rely, and I think you can, on the figures that are being produced by Nickel Mines, NIC, which is the only listed Australian nickel company that I'm aware that's got interest in Indonesia. But look, I'm a foundation member of the committee that if someone came to you with an Indonesian project, go into another room until the feeling passes you by. But this thing that Tsingshan has built at Morowali, and I've actually visited the site myself, is nothing short of remarkable. And I think the important thing is Tsingshan produces 20% of the world's stainless steel. And if you start wrapping your mind around that, you really are talking not just a global leader, you're talking about a global behemoth. And they are principally interested in stainless. And they've come into Indonesia and carved out of a Sulawesi jungle in the space of 5 years something that was producing 20% of the world's total nickel. And the way their system works, across a roadway, which is me to the back of the room, it goes straight into their stainless steel plant. And others are copying them. And the point I'm making here is not trying to give Nickel Mines a leg up, but this is the area which really controls the nickel market medium term, 10 years in my view. But because it's Indonesia, you really are subject to Some quite dramatic policy changes in terms of export policies, right to work. They've got all sorts of crazy licences that I should rephrase that. They're not crazy to Indonesians, but they don't make a lot of sense to a little white boy who goes in there and tries to work out which way's up. But the other aspect is that they are now investing in HPAL plants. And one of the dampeners in the nickel battery market is that these HPAL plants will make nickel which is battery compatible. But the advantage, and why Legend and IGO really are quite unflustered or unfazed by this activity, is IGO's producing nickel at Nova at $1.65 US a pound. The current numbers for production costs from these HPAL plants are anywhere between $6 and $10 a pound, and the current price is $6.87 a pound. So nickel sulphide production from the Fraser Range is still an incredibly profitable activity to engage in. And as I've said in my last bullet point there, from 225 out, the sky's the limit because of the nickel requirement in the EV battery use. And obviously there's the rider that there's no substitution and that nickel chemistries remain the key technology. So on to Legend. We've got a market cap of $375 million at 15 cents a share. We've got plenty of cash, 29 odd million, and we're getting another 6 million in a couple of days from some option exercise. So we don't need to raise capital for what we're doing for the foreseeable future. If you want to invest in Legend, you go and ring your broker or get onto your ComSec and you start buying on market, because that's the only place you're going to find a Legend share. We're pretty unique in a junior in that we've only got one project, which is this Fraser Range Rockford project. I got sick of geologists calling projects crazy names. So this is actually named after my favourite winery in the Barossa Valley. And anybody who comes to site, I can guarantee you there'll be a nice bottle of red there for you. I like to tell a bit of a Kerry Packer story where one day I asked him for a tip at the Randwick races. And I was a bright young thing in those days, or at least I thought I was. And he glowered at me. And if you've ever been glowered at by Kerry Packer, you'll know it's a pretty fearsome sight. And he said, "Son," he said, "find a horse called self-interest and back it with all you've got." And our register is Kerry Packer's horse Legend. The self-interest is Creasy Group. He's paid cash for his shares. IGO's our second largest shareholder. Both those guys, they know every inch of this ground. They know what works. They're number 1 and 2. Number 3 is David Bailey, the high net worth here from WA. All his shares bought on market. And Wilson Group is me. And of course, all of those have been bought on market, not freebies that have fallen in soft deals as KPI achievements. Our board, Michael Atkins, is an accountant with Canaccord as a finance director now. He's worked with me over 20 years, great relationship. I'm a civil engineer, for those who don't know. A lot of people recognise the engineer but struggle with the civil bit. Oliver's just joined us from Creasy Group. This guy's spent 10 years of his life working in the Fraser Range, absolutely obsessed with it. And if you're up for the challenge, come around to our booth afterwards and just ask him for a quiet chat about nickel copper sulphides in the Fraser Range. And I suspect you'll need a Bex and a lie down within 10 minutes. Tony Walsh, very well known in the public company space. So the investment case for Legend, I've talked about our team, JV Partners. We've got a really big position which will come up later. We've discussed nickel. It's a future-facing commodity. That actually ranks a spot on one of BHP's first slides when they're giving their presentations. Very strong cash position. You'll always hear a systematic exploration approach from Legend. And what I like about that graph on your right-hand side is each of those little arrows indicate exploration success, which to date has taken Legend from a 20 million market cap to a 400 million. And trust me, there's still plenty left in the old girl yet, because Sirius was taken out at 1.8 billion and IGO's producing nickel at that mine at $1.65 a pound. Where we are, a couple of 100 kilometres east of Kalgoorlie, I think the key point about this slide is really the infrastructure access. The Trans-Australian Railway line runs right through the southern part of our tenements, and a little spur line to Mawson will give us the cheapest transport for both product into our mine when we build it, and also product to market, which can go to Kalgoorlie, to the smelter, to Esperance, or to the port, or to Perth Port. This is the really key slide to my mind. That map on your left-hand side is a gravity map. The black outline is the Fraser Zone. It's characterised by high-density rocks and mapped as mafic, ultramafic rocks from a geological perspective. The hot pink colours are the higher gravity. And you can see that Legend, that central area, we control that entire area. So of the belt, it's not just that we've got 19% of this belt, we've arguably got 50% of the best land in the belt. You can see down south here, that's the southern gravity anomaly. The Nova and Silver Knight mine are in that. Our octagonal and Mawson are here, and this one up to the north's in a reserve, and it's easier to speak to the Lord himself than to get permission to drive a car in there, let alone drill a hole. The leverage position I talk about is probably best described as this. If you look at the history of Kambalda, I had it from a very wise New Zealand accountant, which is a bit of a contradiction in terms, but he says he's pretty smart, that the entire Kambalda belt has produced 1.6 million tonne of nickel in its life. Now, the Canadian Geological Society sent Newmont out here in the 1960s because they saw the analogy with the Thompson nickel belt. The Thompson nickel belt has 2.7 million tonnes of contained nickel. It's the same footprint that this is, 400 kilometres long, 50 kilometres wide. And at the moment to date, there's only 300,000 tonne of nickel that we've found in this belt. That's what's been getting me up every day for the last 6 years, and I'm sure that's what the fire in Oliver's belly was when he joined Legend. Look, I won't dither too much about the exploration projects because I can take a bell, but I can't take the glower. And this greater Mawson area is known for a cluster of intrusives. This is where we've got those massive sulfides. This is where I think, you know, the near-term future of Legend is. But please be aware we're not a one-trick pony. We've got 3,000 square kilometres of this area and plenty of other prospects and pipeline of prospects to explore other than Mawson. How we go about it is air core, RC, downhole. We've got these footprints of geochemical anomalism. We've done some RC holes and diamond holes. As I say, we've ticked 3 boxes with the 4th to come. That's a piece of the net textured core that we announced recently from hole 21. It's really important because of it's in the intrusive rocks. The net texture is important in a global context. And this hole 23, with its 90 metres mineralised intercept, it's really interesting to me because I've got a couple of learned geologists in my team. There are 3 different reasons I get from these guys, and they're all right, as to why this hole's important. One is it's 200 metres from what we've seen before. The second is we've got 13 metres of massive, and the third is that 90-metre intercept. But please come and talk about that to Oliver. There'll be regular news flow from the company, and I really hope, as a summary, you've heard from me. We've got a wonderful project. a really dedicated team, and we're passionate to grow shareholder value. Thank you very much.
Well done, Mark. You held us before lunch as well, so tick on that.